Welcome to the Bruce Collins Show. Hello, Chad. Hello, Christopher.
Hello, Bruce. Hello, Christopher.
Hello, Chad. Hello, Bruce.
Hello, Christopher. Hello, Chad.
Hello, Bruce.
Oh, stop. That's enough.
Cheerio, Bruce.
Cheerio, Christopher. Cheerio, Chad.
Cheerio, Bruce. Cheerio, Christopher.
Cheerio, Chad.
I'm glad we started our morning with a bowl of Cheerios.
Yesterday, I had the most delightful Yorkshire pudding.
I had fish and chip.
Wait a minute.
What's wrong?
This is all wrong.
Isn't this the English broadcast?
Yes, but we're doing the UK version right now. We have to start over. Chad, what are you doing?
Tea time.
Flip on the switch, feel the static clear, naming the glow, yeah, the reason we're here. From the edge of the map to your kitchen chair, he's talking wild truth like he owns the air. Out past the highway, out past the mall, where the sand keeps secrets, you can hear that call. It's the Bruce Collins Show.
Welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show. We're very glad to have you join us. I'm Bruce Collins, the Baron of Broadcasting. Let me introduce my co-host, Chad the Odometer Miles, and also Christopher Cartwright. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Bruce.
Hello.
How are you two doing?
I'm trying to make more money.
Oh, Bruce doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah? Are you going to work a second job?
No, I decided to put a large magnet on the back of my bumper of my car.
A large magnet? What on earth did you do that for?
Trying to collect all the loose change on the roads.
That sounds brilliant. How's it been working?
At first it was fine. I made 75 cents. But the next time I drove around the residential neighborhood, 2 refrigerators were following my car.
2 refrigerators were following you. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I could see them coming up the road behind me.
Boy, that magnet must have been too strong.
Well, it's true what they say.
What's that?
A magnet's personality is very attractive.
Magnets even turned on the radio.
Turn on the radio? Why would that be?
It's simple, Chad. Magnets are attracted to heavy metals.
Things got worse. After a mile down the road, a police officer on his motorcycle started to chase me.
I hope he pulled you over.
Sounds like the magnet was the one with all the pull.
Yeah, I got on the side of the road and the refrigerators stuck to the back of my bumper.
You're not the parents of those refrigerators, so you can't be responsible for that.
What did the police officer say?
He was mad because when he got off his motorcycle, his badge ripped off his shirt and stuck to my car.
Now you're collecting some expensive souvenirs. I'm pretty sure that you can sell those on Etsy.
Hey, this is serious, Bruce.
By the way, Chad, I know it was your birthday recently. I got you a gift.
Really? Hey, thanks. Can I open it?
Sure, I got it at Zales Jewelers.
Zales Jewelers? Well, that must have cost a fortune.
Well, I'm not bragging.
Wait, what is this? It's a tiny plastic monkey. Are you sure you got this at Zales?
Yes, I wasn't sure how to order from Temu, so I asked the sales guy if he could help me. It was definitely at Zales.
If you don't want that monkey, Chad, I'll take it. It's not made of metal.
Oh, sure, you can have it.
I'll tell you what, Chad. I'll buy you a filet mignon with mushrooms. Doesn't that sound good?
It sure does. Where are we going?
McDonald's.
McDonald's has filet mignon?
Well, if they don't, I'll get you the next best thing.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Happy Meal toys are also made of plastic, Chad.
Oh, one more thing, Chad.
Yeah?
You forgot to read the birthday card.
Oh, hey, let me open it. It says, "Hey, Chad, happy birthday. Happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. Now hurry up and get to the Chad Miles report. The dumbest news of the week.
Coffee stain on his collar, name tag hanging wrong. Sleep in both of his eyes, red light flashing strong. He shuffles up to the camera, cracked mug, crooked tie. Says, I've seen some stupid stories, but this one made me cry. Oh man, it's the Chad Miles Report headlines. The dumbest news of the week. From Florida man fights lawnmower to influx with concrete. We tune in for the train wreck. We can't stop, we lean into read. Yeah, the Chad Miles Report. Screaming the dumbest news of the week. So dumb, so sweet. Breaking cat stuck in a sweater, breaking toast that looks like a face. Council meets about a pigeon who keeps pooping on the mayor's briefcase. He's deadpan reading disaster, that's really just a broken cone. Nation shocked, he says then Snickers by a kid who married his phone. It's the Chad Miles Report headlines, the dumbest news of the week. Grandma banned from local bingo for allegedly counting too quick. We tune in for the train wreck. We act appalled while trying not to scream. Yeah, the Chad Miles Report, serving the dumbest news.
Well, you heard it, folks. It's time for the Chad Miles Report with the dumbest news of the week. Chad, take it away.
Article number 1. Call in to the Washington State Department of Licensing and you'll have the option for Spanish language communication. At least that's what you would expect, but instead, the Associated Press reported, an automated AI voice just speaks English with a strong Spanish accent. Maya Edwards, whose husband pressed 2 for Spanish, said, "It was hilarious to us in the moment because it was so absurd. But at the same time, it has real accessibility issues for people who need to speak in a different language." The DOL apologized and said the glitch had been fixed as of February 27th, but calls to the service still resulted in the accented voice using Spanish words only for numbers, as in, "Your estimated time is less than 3 minutes." That's from the
Wow.
Associated Press.
Yeah, I saw a similar thing. I called a Spanish line for medical advice, and it said, "Do you have a little congestion?"
Sounds like
Okay,
Senor Pickles.
yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's
Article
funny
number
that
2.
the AI, though, would interpret Spanish as having a Spanish accent.
Yeah, like where did that come from?
Yeah,
That is really funny, I guess, if you're not offended by it.
yeah, exactly.
Article number 2. After being reported missing on February 14th, a 36-year-old Florida man was found on February 26th, up to his neck in mud,
Happens all the time.
WCJB reported. Andrew Giddens, who friends said had been depressed after a recent breakup, was found near the Vulcan sand plant in Melrose. A Vulcan employee discovered him and called the authorities. Rescue crews from 3 counties spent more than 2 hours using ropes, ladders, and other supplies to free him from the mud. After 12 days in the elements without food or water, he was in
Man.
critical condition at a local hospital. I can't believe he survived. That's crazy.
Yeah, they asked the Vulcan employee what he thought of this guy being in the mud up to his neck, and the Vulcan employee said, "Highly illogical."
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, me too. I hope he lives
I hope
long
he
and
lives long.
prosperous.
We almost said the same thing at the same time.
Can you imagine him telling that story someday, though? I was in critical condition once. Oh, why did that happen?
12 days. That's
That's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
They should study him.
It almost reminds me of those old television shows where everybody fell into quicksand and it was like up there.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest fears as a kid.
Yeah. Until you found out it's not as bad as they portray it on television.
Yeah, you can literally swim out of it.
Yeah.
Article number 3. Scientists in China have used gene editing technology to create a new tomato variety that smells like buttered popcorn. The Independent
Genius.
reported on February 26th. Why? The project was conceived to address the problem of tomatoes losing some aroma and flavor during transport and storage. Peng Zhang, an author of the study, compared the alteration to creating varieties of fragrant rice. But why buttered popcorn? Why couldn't they smell like tomatoes? That's from The Independent.
Yeah. So they did that because the tomatoes were losing aroma and flavor. So instead, now you're going to have people at the grocery store going, "Hey, I smell popcorn." Oh, it's
doesn't-
tomatoes.
That makes
some
no sense.
Chinese tomatoes. Those Chinese.
Article number 4, if I can pronounce this person's name correctly.
Mm.
Lane Feathergill, 58 years old, took matters into his own hands on February 26th in Sykes Creek, Florida, WFTV reported. An ambulance on call had parked in a way that blocked Feathergill from moving his car, so he got into the ambulance and started to move it out of the way.
Great idea.
Of course.
Yeah.
Brevard County fire rescue crews were working on a patient in the back of... Okay,
So they were actually in the ambulance
let me read that again.
when he's driving away with it.
Brevard County fire rescue crew members were working on a patient in the back when they felt the truck begin to roll. Then one of the first responders got out and confronted Feathergill as he jumped out of the ambulance and into his own car, then struck a paramedic in the leg as he drove away.
Stop.
The
Deputies
penalties
tracked
are
him
adding
down
up.
and arrested him for grand theft of a motor vehicle and burglary of an occupied conveyance.
Yeah.
So he just jumped out with the vehicle in motion and got in his own car and hit a paramedic.
Yeah, and further on in the story, they said that actually after that, he was going down the freeway and he had his arm draped out of the car, the driver's seat, and he was swinging this chain, and a truck was coming from the other direction. The chain wrapped around its tire and yanked his arm off.
No.
So they charged him for armed robbery.
Article
That's
number
right.
5. Kaya Reel of East Hollywood, California, ordered food for delivery, KTLA TV reported on February 22nd, but the Coco robot device that brought her dinner ran into some problems. Literally. Reel said she was inside her home when she heard a commotion outside. I came out here and found the Coco in my garden.
Coco, what are you doing in my garden?
It had got my fence caught up in its wheel, then just drove away with the fence attached to it, Reel said.
That's rude.
I chased after it and looked like a total crazy person. The company that runs the Coco robots is going to reimburse Reel for the damage to her garden. Apparently, it's not Coco's first rodeo with deliveries going amok. One ran into an ambulance. Another knocked over a parked motorcycle. That's from
Jeez.
KTLA.
Ran into an ambulance. Why, the Coco is just like Lane Feathergill.
I think those two stories are connected.
Yeah. You know, in other news, a lady who ordered a Big Mac that night got a free fence.
What does a Coco look like?
It's like one of those Uber little robots that go around and deliver food.
Does it look like Professor X in his wheelchair? Kind of what I
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, they should at least put a robot's face on these things so you think then you don't look like a crazy person when you're chasing it.
A total crazy person.
That's right.
I had seen these like robot car looking things that look like ice chests, but with wheels.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking that's what kind of thing it is.
I think so too. But we'll never know until we meet Coco.
True.
Hey, Chad and Christopher, Thanks so much for joining us this week. Up next is our guest, John Rubino. You won't want to miss this. Our guest tonight is John Rubino. John Rubino is a financial writer, economic commentator, and author known for his analysis of global monetary policy, debt markets, and the long-term stability of the financial system. Over the past several decades, he has written extensively about currency trends, central banking, inflation, and precious metals. Rubino is the former co-author of several influential books on economics and monetary history, including The Collapse of the Dollar and How to Profit from It, and The Money Bubble. His work explores how government debt, central bank policies, and global financial imbalances can impact investors and everyday citizens. John Rubino now contributes to his very popular Substack account, and I want to give a word of warning to listeners and watchers of this program. They should do their own due diligence when investing and decide for themselves what their risk tolerance is, and we are not advising people on what to do. With that in mind, John Rubino, welcome to the Bruce Collins Show.
Hey, Bruce. Great to finally meet you face to face. We've been online friends for, I want to say, more than a decade now. But
it's been about 20 years, actually.
Yeah.
You were on Jim Poplava's Financial Sense website, and it was before the Great Recession. And I had written you an email, and you replied back, and then I later had you on as a guest many times.
Wow, we're going way back there if it's Jim Poplava's show, yeah.
Yeah. Now, John, let's start at your Substack account. Tell us about this and how people can subscribe.
Well, I'm at rubino.substack.com, and the newsletter I publish there is basically about actionable advice for the kind of crazy things that are likely to happen in the next decade. You know, everybody gets that we're heading in some dark directions, but the idea is that if we develop resiliency in our finances and in our broader lives, that will come through all of this stuff in a lot better shape. And, you know, so far so good. It turns out there's a lot of actionable stuff that we can be doing.
Yeah. So what's your assessment of President Trump's second term so far? I have a autographed picture of him, but I also have one of Ron Paul right here. But I'm skeptical that the debt will ever be paid down, particularly with this current emphasis on war and, you know, owning Greenland and all of this defense spending. What do you think? How do you think he's been doing in the second term?
Well, you know, the thing about Trump is that he's a multitasker. So whatever you like about what he's doing, you can find 5 or 6 things that you don't like that he's doing at the same time, you know, and that's kind of what it's like right now because, you know, when I look at Europe, I think, thank God for Trump coming in and closing the border and, you know, sparing us a cultural civil war at some point, not in the not too distant future. But then, you know, we're bombing everybody in sight. And as you said, nobody, not just the U.S., but all the other big countries of the world have given up trying to control their debt. And so we're in kind of the death spiral part of the fiat currency experiment now, where, you know, in 1971, we went off the last vestige of the gold standard. We gave all the big countries in the world effectively unlimited credit cards in the form of monetary printing presses, and we've abused that power increasingly over the next 50 years. And now, you know, the interest cost on our debt is becoming unmanageable, and we're not doing anything about it. So there's virtually no doubt that some kind of a currency crisis happens in the not too distant future. And that is resolved with some kind of a monetary reset where we go, okay, you know, unbacked currencies that are run by governments, that didn't work. So let's go back to the gold standard or something similar that takes the ability to create money out of thin air away from governments. So anyhow, back to Trump. You know, I wish we weren't invading everybody in sight. He ran as a peace president, somebody who was going to end the forever wars and keep us out and keep our kids out of regime change wars around the world. And now we're just we're overthrowing everybody in sight. They're going to finish with Iran, assuming that they finish. Then they're going to go straight to Cuba. And then after that, they'll be looking around at who next, and that'll be all the way to the end of Trump's second term. So he's going to be defined. He's a really consequential president. I mean, he's going to be defined by a lot of things. He loaded the Supreme Court with conservatives who are young enough to stay there for a generation. So for the next 20 years, there's basically a 6-3 majority, conservative majority on the court, which is a very big deal. And he's rationalizing NATO, which was a very bad deal for us. And now he's getting us a better deal to the extent that we stay in NATO at all. That's a good thing, So it's a lot of stuff with Trump. I like a lot of things he's done. I'm appalled by some other things. And right now I'm kind of wrestling with how to add it all up and come to a final conclusion. Not there yet.
Yeah, for me, he was the only choice for president in the last, 3 elections. So I did vote for him. And like you said, there's a lot of things that I like that he's done. And I like the idea that he's not a politician, to be honest. But nobody is really listening to George Washington's words, no foreign entanglements. It's just nowadays we just have to be right in the center of everything and spend all of this money on defense. And I think that's going to come back to bite us. Talking about the U.S. debt situation, mathematically, is it impossible to fix without a crisis?
Yeah. The numbers are just too high. And the interest on our debt is debilitating. So, what we'll try to do is lower interest rates back down to zero and maybe negative territory. But we found out in the early 2020s what excessive government spending does to the value of the dollar. We had a 1 year, 2023, in which the official inflation rate was 10%, almost 10% in the U.S. And it was much higher in real terms for a lot of people. So we've been through that. We found out what negative interest rates and aggressively accelerating government spending does. So I think this time around, we're going to try it again. That's the only tool the Fed has for preventing a 1930s-style deflationary depression. And so as soon as the stock market rolls over or some other very scary thing happens, employment drops to the point where a recession starts, something like that, you'll see the Fed aggressively start easing. And we'll see how we respond to that. It's very possible that the bond market will just say, nope, not this time, and long-term interest rates will go up as short-term interest rates go down, which is the same thing as saying we'll have tightening monetary policy at a time when, equities might be crashing or employment might be plunging, something bad happening that we need to counter with easy money, and we no longer have the ability to do it. And that will be one of the headline stories going forward, where the bond market just rebels against a profligate government, and they see no way out at that point.
Yeah. Now, one of the things in following people who talk about economics or see things coming ahead, looking at trends, for instance, Jim Pablava, he was very accurate like yourself. But I remember before the Great Recession, he was talking about hyperinflation, which that discussion kind of went away. So it kind of taught me that we can see trends, but it's very difficult to know exactly when it's going to happen. This current monetary system, can it limp along for another decade or two?
Highly unlikely, because we've just gotten to the point where the numbers are unmanageable. And with the whole world arming for World War III, apparently, we're not doing anything to cut our debt. So, I think it happens, or it starts to really accelerate in the next few years, and that it's completely possible that it resolves by the end of this decade or early in the next decade. So I don't think we have much time left.
So, what do we see next? A recession, a depression? Does the next recession look like 2008, or is it something entirely different?
Well, it could be one of two things. One is that we have a very deep recession, stocks tank, and we start falling into something like the Great Recession, but something that could be much worse because we may not have a fix for it. And then the Fed goes all out to stop it by aggressively easing. And that causes inflation at some point in this process to really pick up, which is to say it causes the value of the dollar to really plunge. And we'll see an acceleration of the shift that we're seeing now from financial assets into real assets. Which is to say that real asset prices will spike. So we'll see an inflation in the commodity sector. And who knows, maybe that ends the process and we have to do a monetary reset at that point. But so it could, for a little while, look like the Great Recession, with some sectors blowing up and things looking really deflationary. And then, but I think this time the second part of that process will be a more aggressive Fed easing. So we won't have a long time in deflation hell. We'll shift back to inflation pretty aggressively. So I think this time it might be on internet time.
Mm-hmm. So debt crises often end with some kind of reset. Are we looking at inflation, default, currency reform, or all three?
Yeah, well, it could be any of them. We're down to basically two choices, deflationary collapse or an inflationary boom followed by a deflationary collapse. So it depends on the choices that our policymakers make going forward. But I think chaos is really the through line of all this. Yeah, it could be this or it could be that, but it's going to be really volatile and chaotic from here on out. And we're kind of seeing how that plays out now. Precious metals spike, and then oil temporarily spikes and then goes back down. And Bitcoin has had one of its worst corrections ever, and now it's starting to spike again. And so we're going to see volatility in the prices of most major asset classes. At the same time, the governments of the world are seeing more and more volatility in their currencies. So I don't think we can talk about specifics with any kind of certainty. I think we're just going to see a really messy world for a while here. We're going to see a lot of volatility that will verge on chaos. And then we'll see a kind of a cathartic crisis at the end, followed by some kind of a monetary reset that hopefully takes us back to some kind of a commodities-based monetary system. And to do that, it has to be at a much higher gold price and everything, but it can be done. We know we've had gold-backed currencies in the past, and we know how they work, and so we can go back to some kind of a commodity standard with a high degree of certainty technically, because we've already done it.
So this crisis that we talk about, it's obviously economic, but would you say it's also cultural? In other words, people have grown dependent on debt and consumption, as has our government. And it seems like it's a systemic problem. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, easy money and inflation tend to corrupt governments and individuals, because for governments, obviously, they just spend whatever they want to buy whatever election they have to buy because they know they can create money out of thin air, and that's hugely corrupting. And easy money creates more inequality. Basically, we've created an aristocracy now running the U.S., and that's incredibly corrupting because they know they can get away with anything. Look at the Epstein files. And look at the behavior of the big banks, which have turned themselves into, in effect, hedge funds. So there's massive corruption everywhere. And in the monetary world, that leads obviously to currency destruction and inflation. But in the cultural world, it leads to a lot of the same stuff because we have stopped trusting the big systems now.
Yeah.
There's a term called the trust horizon, and it's been shrinking. In other words, used to be when everything was well run that we trusted the United Nations and the World Health Organization and the Federal Reserve because they seemed to be doing a good job of taking care of us in the ways that that they were supposed to. Well, now all of those guys have failed. The public health system, the monetary system, the foreign affairs, everything that the U.S. government in particular touches, we screw up. So, in a cultural sense, regular people are kind of disconnecting from the ruling class. We just don't trust them anymore. We don't want anything to do with them. We would much rather focus on our friends, our family, our neighbors, the local government run by people that we can meet and look in the eye. And we have, more and more people have gardens now because they don't trust the food system, and they homeschool their kids because they don't trust the education system. Well, see, that's a cultural breakdown when something like that happens. And then, meanwhile, you've got unconstrained immigration in a lot of places where immigration is a good thing, but too much of a good thing is destructive, as with basically anything else. And especially Europe, but also for a while in the U.S., where they're importing too many people from too many diverse cultures, and it's diluting their own culture. So they're ceasing to exist in Europe. They're committing cultural suicide. And we were on that same path in the U.S. until Trump came along and did one of the good things that he's done, which is to close the border and start rationalizing the immigration system. But, the cultural breakdown, especially in Europe, is liable to lead to civil war there in several, if not all, the major European countries. And, if you want to point to cultural breakdown, just look at Europe and you'll see where the U.S. could have been in another 5 years if we didn't get our act together.
Now, you've studied financial crises for decades. Has anything about the current situation surprised you?
Oh, yeah. How long it's gone on. It really felt like the Great Recession would be the end of the fiat currency experiment because we were having to the numbers were already unmanageable. And then we took on trillions and trillions of dollars of new debt. And not just the U.S., it was Europe, it was China, Japan. So everybody just pressed down on the speed, the gas pedal, and started adding more and more debt. So now we're at the point where, once again, to me, it looks like the numbers are completely unmanageable, and it's the end of the process. But of course, since I thought the last recession was the end of the process, you want to take what I say with a grain of salt here. But the numbers really are just insane, and it did surprise me very much that we could get here. Now, the upside of that is that it gave us more time to develop resilience and more time to shift our finances over. And, if the fiat currency system collapsed in 2009, a lot of us would not have been ready. We wouldn't have enough gold and silver. We wouldn't be far enough out of financial assets, and we really would have suffered when they did a currency reset. This time around, we've had another decade, and the number of people who seem to get the whole gold bug story and seem to identify with the whole prepping thing is growing. So there are more and more people now who are going to come through the next decade in pretty good shape compared to what there would have been if 2009 was the end of the experiment.
Mm-hmm. Now, if President Trump sees this interview, cross my fingers, and he calls you tomorrow to make you the new Treasury Secretary, what's the first thing we should do economically?
Well, I would say immediately just rename the dollar or redefine the dollar as a fixed amount of gold, let's say 1/15,000th of an ounce, and go back to a gold standard where gold is convertible by the government for dollars, and dollars are convertible for gold. And that, going forward, will limit the amount of new currency that the government can create. So I do that first and foremost. And And then, then comes the really hard stuff of dramatically shrinking the size of the government. Because if you go back to a gold standard that limits the amount of money the governments can borrow and spend, but the government still wants to spend everything that it's always spent. In other words, it doesn't actually cut any spending. Then you have an immediate crisis and the whole thing breaks. So you have to limit the size of government by cutting back on a lot of spending programs, and that's incredibly painful. And there's no choice but to do it. And then you do the monetary reset, or you do it in concert with the monetary reset. So, those would be the two things that I, as dictator of the country, would do. And neither would be easy, although monetary reset would be, enriching for the gold bugs and impoverishing for the people who trusted the government. So we'd have to work out that process of satisfying enough people to go forward. But that's the stuff we have to do. And then, part of the spending cuts would have to be in the military, where we would have to pull the military empire back. That's you got a picture of Ron Paul up there, and that would be his first thing, is he would close down the global military empire, bring all our soldiers home, put them to work protecting our own borders, and cut a lot of the current military spending. So yeah, that too. And none of it easy. All of it crosses big constituencies, but the alternative is a horrendous collapse of the current monetary system.
So, unfortunately, you're not Treasury Secretary. So, which is more likely down the road, that gold and silver are going to be remonetized, or will they be outlawed?
Well, therein lies one of the big choices we have to make, because it's possible that the government will take a page out of FDR's 1930s playbook and say, okay, from now on, we might give gold a role in the monetary system, but individuals can't own it. We're just going to take your gold away. Much harder to confiscate silver because it's an industrial metal. So I think if you own physical silver, you're partially protected from confiscation. But that is one very real possibility, because going back to a gold standard takes away the power to create money out of thin air from governments. And nobody in their right mind is going to give up that kind of power once they've got it. It's just not in human nature to give up that immense amount of power. And so they're going to look for alternatives. And one of them might be some kind of a hybrid monetary system where they take gold, but they don't let us have any. And, that could happen. That's part of the planning that you have to do as an individual when you're accumulating physical gold and silver, because you have to decide where to store it, and you have to decide who to tell about it, and you have to decide what to do if the government decides it wants to take it away from you. And in the 1930s, most people did not turn their gold over to the government, and they got to keep it. The government, they were technically felons for doing that, but they made that choice, and it worked out for them. We don't know if the same thing will be true this time around, so it may be a tougher choice, but it is a choice. It is one of the things that we have to think about going forward, and have a plan in place when and if something like that happens.
Now, there may be people who are listening to us for the first time, and they're getting exposure to things that they have not been exposed to. And we're not advising people what to do with their money, but if you had a family member, say, who came to you troubled about the economic picture, what do you think a person should be doing right now to protect their savings?
Well, generally speaking, you want to convert as much of your savings as possible from financial assets like government bonds and cash in a bank account or something like that, because those things depend on the value of the dollar for their value. And you want to move as much of that capital into things like gold and silver and oil stocks and copper stocks and uranium stocks, things that depend for their value on real assets that governments can't make more of. So that'd be the first thing I would tell them, is just start that financial shift. And don't jump with both feet into any one thing. Just gradually start moving in that direction. And, hope by the time you're done, or that you have enough time to get done before everything really hits the fan. But start moving in that direction. And then, with the rest of your life, take a look at how our grandparents lived. They had gardens and they knew their neighbors and they were handy. They could fix stuff. We should start skill stacking, trying to be able to do as many things as possible ourselves, including growing some food and stuff like that. And look at the preppers that we used to think of as kind of tinfoil hat crazies. A lot of their life strategies turned out to be incredibly useful in this world. So maybe we want to reconsider that kind of a lifestyle and start looking at physically preparing for chaotic times, when the big systems don't work as well as we've gotten used to them working. And how are we going to be living then? What are we preparing for? So put all that together and you've got quite a bit of work on your hands, but you've also got things that can be very useful going forward. So if you look at it as you improving your life with all of this stuff, and you look at it as an investment thesis where not only will your life run more smoothly if you do some of this stuff, but you'll have a lot more money. If your gold and silver and uranium and copper all go up, then you'll get richer as time goes on. So there are ways of looking at all the crazy stuff that's coming that are kind of psychologically positive, and that's how I would do it. Make sure that you're looking at what you do as taking advantage of opportunities and improving your life and the lives of your family and your friends. And then it's psychologically more healthful to do all that stuff.
We're not going to get into the topic of AI in this interview, and that's why I want to give credit where credit is due. If people go on Thoughtful Money YouTube channel with Adam Taggart, and I'm a big fan of that, by the way, you did an interview recently where you go into some detail about AI and what that could portend to the economy, as well as, individuals' jobs and all of that. So I would recommend people go see that, John Rubino with Adam Taggart on Thoughtful Money, and you can find that on YouTube. But John, what do you think in general of Bitcoin and crypto? I know Peter Schiff hates it and other people love it. I'm a little skeptical of it still. I don't know what it is. I know it's digital, but I did sell most of mine after it went over 110,000. What do you think of these cryptocurrencies?
Well, I've actually spent a lot of time trying to understand Bitcoin and the other cryptos, and I have never succeeded. I love the concept of technology-based money that's outside the regulatory apparatus and is limited in supply and therefore will hold its value. Conceptually, I love it. But how something like Bitcoin, which literally doesn't have a physical existence, is going to be the base layer of the next monetary system, I just haven't been able to get my mind around it. And, I'm not criticizing it. It might succeed. And, I might be like a guy sitting in a horse and buggy in 1890 and looking at the very first automobile and saying, that'll never work. So it could be that I'm just too old to ever really grasp Bitcoin and cryptos, and that they might, at least Bitcoin definitely, and a few of the other major cryptos, they might turn out to be very serious financial assets and part of the global financial system going forward in a way that I don't yet get. And so I think I would say don't use me as a source of information for cryptos, because I'm just not qualified to have that kind of an opinion. I'll talk your ear off about gold, but I have very little that's based on any kind of technical understanding to say about Bitcoin.
Yeah, same here. I don't know either. And I know that the thing that Bitcoin stands out from the other crypto is there's a supply and demand thing, right? There's 21 million coins of Bitcoin that will only ever be out there. And so that would seem to portend to the price going up, in terms of supply and demand. But again, I don't know what it is. So let's move on. So Looking at the broader picture, what do you make of the Epstein files and the lack of prosecution? What does this say about Washington, D.C.?
I think I'm appalled by the behavior of our ruling class. You know that having power without consequence is incredibly corrupting, and we've seen that in human history. Almost every aristocratic class since the beginning of time has been corrupted, and they behaved in ways that seem flat out crazy to normal people. But these guys, the people in the Epstein files are unique, in part because they're so weird, in part because they're inarticulate when they should be really articulate since they're running the world, and in part because of what some of the stuff that we don't understand yet kind of seems to imply, where they're talking about pizza and grape soda and beef jerky, and it really sounds like they're referring to child molestation and basically rape and if you want to take it a little further, cannibalism. And I'm not saying I know that stuff's been going on, but I'm saying that it's hard for a normal person to see that stuff and not think that it's something really nasty going on behind the scenes. If they need euphemisms like that, that really the actual terms beef jerky and pizza wouldn't be used in normal conversation. So they're referring to something else, and whatever it is, I mean, if you need a euphemism, it's something that you're ashamed of, or at least don't want to get caught doing. And so anyhow, yeah, it looks like more is coming from the Epstein files, and if we get everything, it might bring down most of global governance, and it would totally be worth it. But I think that a lot is going to remain hidden, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm happy to see whatever come out, and the people that get nailed in the future get nailed. I think that there's a lot of borderline death penalty stuff in there, and it would be great if we got to that point.
Do you think it's encouraging that Prince Andrew was arrested?
I think he was a scapegoat. I mean, they didn't even arrest him for Epstein file stuff. It was for taking government secrets and giving them to people who weren't authorized to see them. So no, to this point, nobody serious has gotten in any real trouble for any of this. Right. I mean, Bill Gates, It's a borderline arrestable offense, what it seems like he might have done, based on those emails. So, and then, he's one of hundreds, and we aren't seeing the videos yet. So I think if they release the videos, and by the way, God bless Thomas Massie. We have a new Ron Paul in the government right now, and that guy's putting his life on the line to get the Epstein files out and to do some other stuff he's been doing. So, and if anybody's in a position to help that guy, please do, because he really deserves it. And if he succeeds, we're going to see more than we would have otherwise.
Yeah. So I've got one more question, and it's even more bizarre. So get ready. Do you think all of this UFO talk is deflection from the Epstein bombshells? I mean, why did it occur when it did? We had an Obama interview where he says, yes, aliens are real. And then all of a sudden Trump's on an airplane and he says that's classified information and we should release all of it. What do you think is going on with all of that?
I think 60-40, 60% probable false flag / deflection kind of thing, where they're trying to distract us from the wars that they're waging and the Epstein files and all the other stuff that's going on that would put a lot of people in jail, I think, under certain circumstances. The 40% is because there have been a lot of elected officials standing in front of cameras and microphones and saying, yeah, I've been briefed, and it's kind of real, and then there's a lot of leaks from the military about how, we almost had these mid-air crashes where we almost run into UFOs and things like that, and we can't catch them when we try to chase them. That stuff is out there floating around too. And it could be that they're softening us up for some kind of an announcement where, yeah, all right, aliens are here, and we've been doing this, we've been doing X, Y, and Z about it. And, I think that's possible, but I think it's more likely right now that they're just trying to fool us in some way. So we'll have to find out. We'll see what's in the files. Trump declassifies, although we haven't heard a thing about that since his announcement, right?
Right.
And you would think that if any of it was distracting, that now is a pretty good time to use it to distract us. So we'll see about that too. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And see, that's all the more reason to, if you can, disconnect from it once in a while for your own mental health. Just take half a day and don't look at your phone. Don't turn on the news or anything, and tend your garden, walk your dogs, have a glass of wine with some friends. And to the extent that you can do that more and more often going forward, I think it's healthier, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, if it's real, it's horrifying. If it's fake, then the governments of the world lying to us like this is horrifying. So it's all horrifying. I think we should be trying to get away from it and live our lives as much as possible right now. So here's hoping.
Yeah. I mean, you can't control the news cycle. You can only control yourself. So, and your mental health. Now, John, before we go, please remind people again where they can find your Substack.
It's rubino.substack.com, and it's got a portfolio of stocks that ought to and have done well in this kind of environment, and a lot of other themed posts where there's multiple, 15 or 20 posts on a given subject, like becoming invisible and things like that. And it's all in a table of contents, divided up chronologically and by subject matter, so it's easy to find.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for joining us this week, and I hope we can have you back in the future.
Thanks, Bruce. Look forward to it.
Hey, thank you for joining us this week. Really appreciate it. If you would, please like this video and subscribe to the Bruce Collins Show channel. That helps us a lot with the algorithm, so we can spread this show over many eyeballs. Also, I have another channel if you're interested. It's Bruce Collins Reacts and Stuff, where I look at some of the mysterious, interesting videos out on YouTube and I react to them. I think you'll like that too. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Flip on the switch, feel the static clear, naming the glow, yeah, the reason we're here. From the edge of the map to your kitchen chair, he's talking wild truth like he owns the air. Out past the highway, out past the mall, where the sand keeps secrets, you can hear that call. It's the Bruce Collins Show. The buried up for dusting, taking control from the desert wind to your radio. We're the loyal knights of the wobbly table, laughing loud, keeping legends stable. Yeah, the Bruce Collins Show. Rubino rides high over dust and stone, stories like sparks in a cyclone.
Yodelites. This has been a Bad Yodeler production. Good night.